Sekou Smith with us now. Talk some hoops. Sekou, Tiki, and Tierney, how are you, bud?
Fellas, how you doing?
All good. Of course, the Sekou, for those who don't know, NBA TV analyst, does a good job, and he's been with us many times here on the show. We're doing well. You know, I understand. We all understand what the Cavaliers are doing. There's no doubt about it. But cutting through, resting guys, and well, I've said now for a good 2.5 months, maybe even a little bit longer, that their big obstacle. They're a slow team. Their foot speed ain't there from point A to point B. How much can you cover that up once the real games start here? How much do you think that could actually be a big problem in the postseason?
You know, I don't think it's an issue against Eastern Conference teams. I think where it could reach out and bite them a little bit is if they were to make it back to the finals. All the teams in the West they would face would have an advantage in that department. I think one of the biggest problems for the Cavaliers right now is they've really restructured their team the past year and a half to compete against the Warriors. It's really been focused on how do we put together the type of team that can, you know, beat back the Warriors. And they've kind of ignored the fact that turns you into something that you weren't when you first saw the Warriors in the finals a couple years ago. You're not the defensive-minded, rugged team you were. You're now a three-point shooting team with a lot of guys who are not individually great defenders or even good defenders. So you put yourself in a really awkward position targeting the Warriors when you have to actually get through an entire field before you get to Golden State.
No, we don't spend a lot of time talking about Ty Lue because LeBron and Kyrie and Kevin Love kind of dominate the conversation when you talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. But if it came down to it, he had to coach his way. I don't even really know what that means, Sekou, as I ask you this. But what do we know about him as a coach and a guy who can make an adjustment that needs to be made at whatever point, if it should matter for this Cavs team?
Yeah, I think there has been some real hand-wringing about that's really overblown. The Cavs issues aren't about in-game adjustments and, whether or not the coach is calling timeouts at the right time or not. Those were issues they had under David Blatt, who was, coming fresh to the NBA from his overseas experience. Their big issues right now are about energy level and whether or not playing to the last game of the season in consecutive years has sapped the juice out of some of these guys. And I will tell you that it has. I think we always overlook the fact that playing that deep into a season in consecutive seasons, and other people have done it, year after year. The Pistons team went to the Eastern Conference Finals 6 years in a row. You're talking about tacking on another season's worth of work on your body sometimes when you're playing that many playoff games. So
yeah.
I think that's been their bigger issue more than anything tactical.
Yeah, it's funny you referenced the Pistons. Sekou Smith with us here on Tiki and Tierney. I was doing radio out there in the early 2000s when they started to get pretty good. 2 50-win seasons under Carlisle, Rick's first 2 years there. And then I'll tell you, with the Palace moving downtown, I don't know how much time you spent at the Palace of Auburn Hills. When that place is right and that team's good, whether it was Big Ben when they would bang that big gong through the whole arena, even Stackhouse for a minute, of course, Chauncey and the great Rip. That place is going to be missed. I thought the Palace was a pretty good NBA vibe. How about you?
Yeah, look, I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I grew up watching Pistons games first at the Silverdome. That tells you how old I am.
Yeah.
And it kind of dates me a little bit. But, the Palace, I was there, for some of the biggest and best moments that the Palace saw. I was there at the Brawl. So I was there for one of its darkest moments. And that arena is specific to that state and that area. You could get to the Palace from all parts of the state of Michigan, which made it special. Going to downtown Detroit is going to be a different experience for people outside of that Detroit metro area.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no question. The fan base there, the passion people have for basketball in the state of Michigan, I think they won't have a problem building a new tradition. It'll just be much different than what we're used to from the Palace of Auburn Hills, which was one of the, truly cutting-edge buildings when it came into existence in the league.
Yeah, pretty cool. But I remember one night I was hanging out with Vinny Johnson. Vinny must have had 20 drinks at that little club in there. Vinny Johnson gets loose. Him and George Blaha had a couple of good nights in there, man. Let me ask you this, Sekou. We spent so much time on the MVP and all the other accolades. Who do you think is the coach of the year? That doesn't get a whole lot of love, but I think this year maybe it should.
That's a great question, and you're right. We've kind of kicked some of the other awards to the side, focusing all of our attention on the MVP race. There was a time earlier this season when I would have told you that the hands-down coach of the year should have been David Fizdale in Memphis for the job he did in his first season, without a lot of expectations of what that team would be. But if Brad Stevens leads Boston to the number 1 seed in the East, I have a really difficult time seeing how you overlook that. Mike D'Antoni's done a fantastic job in Houston, putting them in a position for that 3rd seed in the West, and a place nobody predicted they would be. But really, I don't know how you overlook the job Brad Stevens has done without a clear-cut superstar until we saw Isaiah Thomas emerge this year as that. For them to get the number 1 seed in the East, to me, would mean we need to put his name on that trophy and carve it in there now and go ahead and hand him the hardware.
Hey, what do you think about the Rookie of the Year? And the reason I ask is obviously because of Malcolm Brogdon, who is a UVA grad, someone close to my heart as a fellow Wahoo. But obviously Joel Embiid only played 30 games or so. He easily would have won if he would have stayed healthy. But his teammate Dario Saric is also getting a lot of competition. Who comes out on top there? Because it's a previous years we've seen the superstar or the future superstar win the Rookie of the Year. Who wins it this year?
I think there's a compelling case for Sarge with Embiid season, being abbreviated. But I really think if you look at Malcolm Brogdon's impact and what he's meant to a team that's going to be in the playoff mix, I think he would be to me, the ideal candidate. Now, there's no question. If Joel Embiid plays 60 games at the level he played 30, he's a landslide winner for Rookie of the Year. There's not even a competition, but you have to base it on the amount of work guys put in during that rookie season. And Brogdon has really been good. He's really surprised some people, I think, as well, and been a better player as a rookie than most people projected.
Yeah, agreed. Talking to Sekou Smith with us here on Tiki and Tierney. Sekou, analyst on NBA TV. I'm not sure how much you follow the game in terms of getting ready for the draft. I mean, do you have a little more than the rudimentary sense of what the lottery might be? Do you follow that yet or no?
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of guys, I'm kind of keeping an eyeball on the college game as best I can up until March Madness, when we all really dive in and start watching the guys who are going to be the hottest prospects. Listen, everybody tells you this is a fantastic draft. It's deep. You're going to be able to find quality players deep in the lottery and beyond. But I think that at the top, you're looking at some young point guards, guys who are kind of, the vanguard point guards that you see around the league now. These 6'4" to 6'6" guys who can play on and off the ball, who are not necessarily traditional point guards, but guys who can score and be kind of like what Russell Westbrook and James Harden are doing. And I think that's important, and I think those are the guys we'll see come off the board early.
I think it's going to be a great draft. The one thing, we had LeVar Ball on the show the other day, and he's a trip. He was we actually had a good time, but boy, he's out of his mind. And there's been, pertaining to his son, who just his court vision is just off the chain, phenomenal. But his jump shot's a little quirky, kind of from his ear, kind of from his shoulder. Now, you've seen this. You said you've been around a long time. Jamal Wilkes had a funky shot, Reggie Miller. But those guys were like 6'9", 6'8". How much of an issue do you think it's going to be for Lonzo Ball getting that shot off quickly when somebody's tracking him on the perimeter?
Listen, I've watched Sean Marion and Josh Childress, two guys in particular that come to mind in recent memory, who had some of the funkiest looking jump shots I've ever seen. And they were both more than effective in their time in the league, getting the business done and being able to get shots up. I think it's different for Lonzo Ball only because he's going to be playing, the point guard position. So he's going to be on the ball at all times. But he's been as good as he's been coming up through the ranks, high school player of the year, I know, arguably the best freshman or player, some people would tell you, this past season in college basketball. I'm not concerned about any parts of his game, him getting a shot off, him getting bigger and stronger, adjusting to the speed and, the dynamic guys he's going to face on a nightly basis in the league. My only concern would be how big an influence is LeVar Ball going to be on what he does in his professional career, and whether or not some of the antics and hype surrounding his dad is going to take away from his opportunity to reach his potential and be the best player he can be. If he can he can minimize the distractions, I think he's got a chance to be a fantastic NBA.
He's got some future. He's got to keep Dad at bay, and it doesn't seem like he's got any interest in doing that. And maybe even more alarming, it doesn't seem like his dad's got any interest in slowing himself down. I mean, Pops keeps going. It's crazy. He's got to learn.
I don't know about him. I was 30 years old before I could even feel comfortable speaking back up in a loud voice to my dad.
Listen.
I understand his reverence for his old man. It's very important.
Yeah, a little afraid of my old man as well growing up. Nothing wrong with that. I got you. Sekou, good work, buddy. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.